Hey everybody, I'm Jessi Nealand. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a little Ask Jessi question here in my office. So the question that I get asked a lot is, how do I build a more positive relationship with fitness or exercise? Unfortunately, so many people who have body image issues also have sort of messed up relationships or even disordered relationships to food and exercise. Obviously, there's so much material out there around food, but there's really not that much material where people tackle like how to form a more positive relationship with exercise or how to have kind of intuitive exercise, the way that there is material out there about how to like eat intuitively and heal that relationship to food and, get off of dieting and everything. Part of the issue is that while some people may over-exercise, like for sure a disordered relationship to exercise can include over-exercising, it's also something that a lot of people hate and don't do or feel like shame and dread around or think of as like, just incredibly painful, uncomfortable. And with all of that swirling, there's also like, well, what about health? This is one of those things where you don't technically have to exercise the same way you do technically have to eat to stay alive. But we know what the research says about health. And so if you are somebody who is interested in being healthy, then it kind of sucks to have a super negative relationship with exercise where you're either way, where you just hate it, dread it, get anxious about thinking about it, just like feel guilty about not doing it, whatever it is. Or you have like a compulsive relationship to it where it's based on like shame and low self-worth and guilt and this whole thing of sort of feeling like I have to look a certain way, I have to weigh a certain amount, I have to like do things to be good and to earn my food and all this stuff. It gets really messy. And that makes it really difficult to make good decisions for yourself and your body, which makes it really difficult to feel good in your body. So working out can be a great and healthy thing. Exercise can be a great and healthy thing. But what I often find when you're trying to rebuild a relationship to exercise is to take that language out of it. Just to start with movement. Because ultimately movement is going to be something that everybody does. Even people who don't exercise move, Movement is a way of thinking about it that I think has a lot more like gentleness and kindness. And just because it gets you out of the pattern of like exercising is calories or, working out is about aesthetics, like you can just set all that stuff aside. And that way you don't have to work through it all and have totally healed it by the time you're able to like start feeling better in your body. So that's where I would start. And then think about the kind of movements that you enjoy. Like most people have movements that feel good, but they often don't think those movements are valid because they're like, oh, it doesn't take an hour or it doesn't burn enough calories or it's not hard enough, Like if you love walking on the beach, then you love to move, If you love riding your bike around town in a leisurely fashion, then you love to move. If you really enjoy, I can't think of a good example of like a yard game, like a croquet or something, then great, you love to move, right? These are ways that you are moving that bring you pleasure, that feel fun. Maybe it's about the social connection. Maybe you're like, oh, I like to move this one particular way, but I don't really care about the movement itself. It's just because my friends are there. All valid. And so at first I would say just start thinking about what it means for you to do something that you enjoy or feels good during. Not just after, because that's the big advice from the fitness industry is like, oh, you'll feel great after, push through, really grind yourself down, but you'll feel great after. And you might, but you also might start to associate exercise with like misery, which is going to make it really, really hard to get motivated, which is going to put you in one of those cycles of guilt and shame and trying to get motivated and not being able to get motivated and then feeling worse about yourself. It's also just going to make you not want to show up because it sucks, that sort of like adversarial relationship to exercise of like, ugh, I hate this, And yeah, it just sort of changes the way you move when you actually do show up too. When you show up to something that you hate, you breathe differently. Your shoulders are, in a different posture, right? You're tense in certain places that are different. Like when you hate something, you show up and move differently, which means you're also really reinforcing certain patterns of negativity. And that's how so many people, again, those who do it, compulsively or with an unhealthy relationship to it, or those who just can't get themselves to do it at all, so many people have a negative relationship to exercise in this way. So first thing to do is just find ways that you can start to build up a positive feedback loop. And the easiest way to do that is make it fun and make it not crush you. Like, you do not need to be sore. You do not need to be tired. You do not need to have sweat. Take it down a notch for a second and just focus on, what do you enjoy? What do you want to do? What makes you happy to do? Those are the kinds of ways of moving that are going to be self-perpetuating. You don't have to like psych yourself up to go on a walk on the beach with your partner, like just do the things that feel good and that you don't have to do all of this mental gymnastics to accomplish. Because that's going to start reinforcing the pattern of, movement feels good. Movement is nice. Movement is easy. Movement is, just something worth doing. Like, I feel good during, I feel good after. Why wouldn't I do it more? It gives you that sort of intrinsic motivation and connection to it when you've built up a positive feedback loop. So that's hands down the most important thing, I think, for most people who have a really negative relationship to exercise for any reason. The next is to think about just bringing more awareness to how you're showing up physically. And I don't mean like in terms of pain or sleep levels or whatever. I mean in terms of your posture, your energy, your physicality that day, like how your breath is sitting in your body today, how tense your shoulders are today, those things. As you bring awareness to those and sort of ask yourself to pay attention to the link between that physicality and your mental and emotional state, which means you also have to check in with your mental and emotional state, you're going to start finding new opportunities to interrupt the cycle. Because again, if you have a negative relationship to exercise, you also probably have negative body language, both when thinking about exercise and when actually exercising, like as you prepare for it and as you do it. And that's something that you can bring you can create a lot of new opportunities to feel differently, but only if you're aware of what you're doing. So you can't like unclench your shoulders if you're not aware you're clenching your shoulders, right? So bringing more awareness to what is the connection between how I feel mentally today, moment to moment, day to day, and also emotionally, and how is my physicality around exercise specifically. I mean, this is great to do anytime, but specifically around working out or moving your body. If you notice that there is something that is happening when you feel dread or when you feel unworthy and you're like, oh my God, I'm inadequate, I have to go for a run, or oh my God, I can't believe I was so bad and ate that thing, I have to work out, like that stuff will impact your physicality. So just check in and start noticing what impact it has. How do you feel on a day that you're like feeling very confident and accepting of yourself versus a day where you feel like garbage and you're being really critical? And if you never have, different kinds of days and it's just all one way, just check in, like, is there another way that you can approach exercise? Is there another way that you can hold it? Is there another way you can talk to yourself? When I talk about like getting aware of this connection, it's because we want to approach this from two separate ways. One is from the outside in, which is like you literally want to interrupt the physicality and hold yourself the way a person who was feeling more positively towards themselves would hold themselves. And then start moving as if you are somebody who feels worthy. Start moving and holding yourself as if you were feeling good, or you were feeling like you had value, or if you were feeling just worthy, good enough, whatever it is. And then that starts to tell your brain, like your body moving like a confident, secure person, starts to tell your brain, oh, maybe you are worthy. So there's information going both directions. And when you start from the outside in, you're able to really start basically like teaching your brain that you are a person who can experience other stuff than just that habitual criticism and negativity, particularly around exercise, but also body image and everything else. The other way we do it is we work from the inside out. And that basically is where you start to believe or feel like you are a person who is worthy and who likes exercise and who is powerful and who is maybe an athlete, all that stuff changes your physicality on the outside. So when I think about how to improve your relationship with exercise, I'm thinking about how do you approach it from those two directions? How do you use your physicality, like take notice of it and then interrupt old patterns of negativity? I love doing just like a simple exercise where you like pretend you're Beyonce, or you pretend you're The Rock when you're like working out, because it just immediately like gets you into a completely different physicality. And then that physicality starts to affect your energy, your mood, your mindset, all that stuff. And just paying attention to the fact that that works is kind of magical. And likewise, the more that you do the work internally to show up for a workout from a place of power, from a place of worthiness, from a place of positivity as much as possible. Easy done when it's just something that makes you happy, right? Really, really difficult to do when you're like, I'm trying to show up positively for like a CrossFit workout that I'm dreading. Like, that's obviously really hard. That's why we start with the stuff that feels good. Both of those things will improve your ability to actually have a positive relationship with exercise, with fitness, with movement in general. Yeah, and I hope that's helpful, because I think this is such an important thing. If you want to have movement in your life, if you want to be healthy and in shape and like, keep your bones healthy and your mental health healthy, there's so much that is benefited from having an ongoing sort of sustainable routine movement practice. But so many people don't have that, because instead they're either pushing themselves too hard because they feel like they need to earn something through their exercise, or they're not doing it at all because they learned like either I'm not the kind of person who does that, or I don't deserve to feel good, or it has to be so hard that I'm destroyed and I have no interest in destroying myself. Like, all of that negative messaging just robs us of the ability to move in ways that feel good and start noticing, I actually like moving, because it's part of our, it's wired into us to like moving. It just might not be the ways that you've been trying to move that you actually like. Or maybe there's a bunch of baggage in the way that you'll have to work through in order to get to a place where you can actually enjoy it. And if you've been around diet culture and beauty ideals and oppressive, systems for a lifetime, that might take some work and some time. It's something I do with a lot of my clients when they're moving towards body neutrality, is just doing like fitness neutrality or exercise or movement neutrality. It's its own thing, but you need it in order to get to full body neutrality. All right, that is everything. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a comment, hit like and subscribe, turn on the notifications bell. You know the drill. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.